Welcome, everybody, to another episode in this series for Mastermind leaders. And today we have the topic of community leadership for your mastermind group with Ben Schemper. And Ben has led over 200 transformational events. So you can imagine, seen a lot of things. And when it comes to collaboration and bringing people together, he's got a depth and a wealth of experience as well as when he was 29 years old, he led a mastermind community of over 120 members, each paying $20,000 a year. Which you do, if you do the quick math there, that's $2.4 million a year mastermind community. So again, he's got a depth of experience of how to create collaborations with people, as well as deal with the inevitable challenges, bumps in the road when you put a bunch of people together at once. So with that being said, welcome, Ben. And how are you doing today?
Hey, thanks for having me. I am doing great. I love talking about community. I mean, it's kind of honestly probably my favorite topic, my favorite thing to do, to create, to, talk about. So excited to be here. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I'd love to hear, how did you get into community leadership? Because the people who are watching this are mastermind leaders, aspiring mastermind leaders. And so really everybody has community on their heart, this vision of like-minded souls coming together to collaborate and create momentum together. So how did you get started with community?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to give a couple different ways to answer this because it's like, I think community leaders at one level are born, right? And then we also have to learn many things along the way. So, there's the kind of simple and important answer that I got started leading community through leading sales teams. When I was 18, I needed a way to pay for my expensive college, Grinnell College, that I was going to, that I had no idea, how to take care of that. And I got a job selling Cutco, and I loved the experience of seeing so much more become possible for me through direct sales than I previously thought was possible. I made $20,000 when I was 18 in 1 month selling kitchen knives. And prior to that, my highest paying job was $15 an hour working in the nursery at church. So,
Okay.
it's like all of a sudden this world of possibility opened up for me and like what my life could be and how I could just pay for college to start, right? But so much more beyond that. And I then at the age of 19 became a manager with them. So I started leading teams. And that was a pretty unique experience in being able to lead hundreds of college students each summer, and eventually all year round in creating a culture, creating community, right? Where we were all learning about how to tap into more of our potential as humans, and then also our ability to sell knives. And and I mentioned that because I got a lot of reps through that, right? It's like over those 7 years from age 18 to 25, I, probably led 400 trainings or events for my teams and my organizations. And like that was just a lot of experience. I loved the art and also the science of how to, have a whole team, a whole group, a whole culture grow together. So I loved the craft and got a lot of reps in the trenches. And so I, reached a point at one point where I was, at age 20, I was the top manager in the company. So pretty
Wow.
like young in to do that. And there was a point where I was really grateful for everything that I learned from such an amazing organization with great leaders who taught me so much about personal development and community. But there was a point where I was like, all right, and I need to go learn from some people outside of this bubble too.
Hmm.
And I started investing heavily into myself and checking out other communities, right? Other really learning environments. And And at age 24, I paid 120 grand to do Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership, which
Mm.
was all the money I had at the time.
Yeah.
And to see a master do his thing
Mhm.
showed me another level for myself. And I just have continued to explore, and I got to a point where I saw my peers starting to get promoted into leadership
Mm.
because they were really good as an individual contributor, but they didn't know how to lead, right? They didn't know
Mhm.
how to create community. Like no one taught them that, right?
Mhm.
They were just going through the system,
Mhm.
being an A student, and then being an achiever in their role, and then they got promoted, and now they're the leader, right? But it's like, now what? What
Yeah.
now? So, I kind of had a natural progression there into um, uh, helping other leaders create community. Um, so that's like the answer of like how I am where I am today and how I got into leading communities myself exclusively, like professionally
Mm.
in supporting leadership development. But one other answer I think is important is that um, as I remember in high school being the guy who would be able to get my friends to do things that they hadn't done before, right?
Okay.
Went to school in the suburbs of Chicago. I went to like a private Christian school out there in Elmhurst, if anybody knows Chicago. And I grew up going to church in the city, right? And so I lived in a town right between the two where we had public transportation. So I wasn't afraid to like ride the train
Mm.
because I just lived by one and my parents let me take it before all of my Burby friends, their parents were comfortable with them going to the city,
Yeah.
right? And so I remember being like just the guy who like could get people to ride the train for the first time.
Mm.
Like and I think there's something to that just because that's a part of leading community is really
Mm.
leading experience and being able to get people to get out of their comfort zone. So
Mhm.
I know it's kind of a strange answer, but I think back to that, I'm like, like that's actually where I think I started to become someone that was building community by getting people to share experiences that they had not experienced before together.
Mm. Wow. I love that. And I didn't realize you were from Chicago, Minnesota born over here. So
There you go. Yeah.
represent.
And my wife went to Creedham Durham Hall,
No
CDH.
way. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Wow. So yeah, let's go deeper into that. I feel like that is so powerful. What you shared is, leading from experience, going first, and
Mhm.
then you don't, I mean, that really resonates with me. That's, I mean, really how it's been for me my whole life is just maybe having the impatience or just wanting to just jump right in and then sharing with others oftentimes like, hey, wouldn't recommend this, would recommend this, don't have everything figured out, but this is what I have so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think just to go deeper on that, there's a reality for how community is actually built. It's
Mm.
actually formed. Um, and I'm starting to appreciate more how necessary it is for all of us to learn about and value these simple truths, right? I went to a meetup in San Francisco last week that was for a bunch of Gen Z community builders.
Okay.
Which was awesome. It was like so cool to get in touch with the San Francisco like Gen Z techies building community out there. I met this one young girl who built a community of 60,000 UX designers in
Wow.
2 years. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And there's a lot that she knows how to do online that's really, amazing
Hmm.
that I want to learn more about. But she wants to learn about how to create community in real life. And
Mm.
the whole conversation was about, right? Like all the Gen Z community leaders were like, they're having this profound discussion about how to build something in real life. And I
Hmm.
was like, whoa, that's what? Okay, I guess that's what they need to learn. And it made me really appreciate some of the experiences that I've had. and that I think our generation has had. And I think we need to like double down on those simple truths of like what a community actually is and how it's actually built. And it's, you know, it's this bond between people that they agree to, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's this often around a purpose, like a shared purpose, whether that's our learning or it's a cause that we're contributing to or something we're building or creating, right? But it's that bond around a purpose. And we strengthen that by sharing new experiences.
Hmm.
Think about, you know, a lot of analogies for community can often be found in just thinking about how we build individual relationships.
Mm.
And you think about like when you all of a sudden, like, I mean, think about you, right? Like, I remember being in Phoenix,
Right.
and I don't remember if this is like what 6 or 7 years ago, even. I don't remember if I invited you or if we just ended up on a rooftop together, right? If you were just randomly there. But I remember like finding myself after dinner, like seeing a dance party on a roof. And I was like, that looks cool. Like, I love dance music. And going up there, and like you and I just like, we were on this dance floor together on top of this roof, like looking over at the city in Phoenix. It was a beautiful night. And
Yeah.
like, I felt closer to you, you know,
Yeah.
because, right. So, uh,
Yeah.
community.
Just real quick on that. Yeah. I'll never forget that. Yeah. Because, yeah, Bar Smith, rooftop EDM deal in downtown Phoenix. And I think I got a text from you that you're like, hey, man, I'm in town and I'm going to Bar Smith. And I remember like looking over to Roxy. I'm like, you're never going to believe the text I got. And she's like, Bar Smith, let's do it. And yeah, so we went there and that was just such a unique, awesome experience together.
Yeah. Um, and of course, there's also like, if you go, so leading communities, I've actually seen my communities grow the strongest when we have to go through something together.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have to go through something. So, you know, there's like sharing new fun experiences. For me, that was new. Maybe you'd been to Bar Smith before, but I hadn't. It was my first time experiencing the Phoenix scene. And I
Yeah.
was like, all right, I feel closer to you because like we did that together.
Yeah.
And I've also had experiences where, um, you know, I led a mastermind on a trip to Guatemala. And
Mm.
we climbed a volcano at night. And it was epic because we had to like pay the guards. Our tour guide, knew who to pay really. And
Yeah.
we had to climb this volcano at night to go see it erupt in the dark, which was
Wow.
in and of itself, right? New experience for all of us. We felt more bonded in our community. And this was a men's trip of men's
Mm.
entrepreneurs really supporting each other. And then on the way down the volcano, our tour guide took the wrong turn.
Mm.
And at one point in the evening, we saw the lights to a city, and they were like, "We're on the wrong side of the volcano." It was foggy that evening, so they got a little disoriented. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "What does that mean?" They're like, "It means we got to hike 90 minutes back to where we were to
Mm.
then be able to go down the volcano from there." And at this point, it's like 2 a.m., right? It's like we're tired. And the two biggest dudes in our group, uh, both tore it was like their ACL or their MCL,
Oh, wow.
the course of that, getting back to where we had gotten lost point. And we
Yeah.
had to carry them off the mountain. There were there
Ah,
were there
okay.
were like 12 of us, and then the other 10 were carrying these two like 220-pound dudes off the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And we got, it was hard. It was really challenging. Like, we didn't have an option though, but to keep going, get everybody off the volcano. And
Yeah.
I think we ended up getting back to our hotel at like 6 a.m., right? Sunrise,
Mm-hmm.
and exhausted. But I just remember the next day, like the group just came together in a whole new way of openness, of vulnerability, of like willingness to like take a stand and challenge each other.
Mm.
We had just shared this journey the night before, that we all got through together, right?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. So powerful. And I felt that as well too. And the question that comes up for my mind is, have you created that bond online in certain cases, or have you found where it's like really only, in person?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's absolutely possible to do that online. I think about very much having that same question myself going into the pandemic, right?
Right.
And mind you, going into the pandemic, I have a business where I'm was running 20 events a year for uh,
Damn.
different types of different types of events. And so I'm pretty like much identifying as like I run events. And
Yeah.
now I can't. I'm like, what's gonna happen? Like, am I just completely fucked here?
Yeah.
Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And uh there's definitely a way that I just thought all my clients were gonna leave, like
Mhm.
shit, they don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
Um, what we ended up finding was that they needed it more,
Mm.
right? Because of what they were going through. And we
Yeah.
were offering the best option they had
Yeah.
for community. So at a
Mm.
time when they were isolated, we actually weren't. In our community, we had a ton of connection
Mm.
virtually.
Mhm.
Um, and I will also say that we, took a few risks to gather as a community, not initially. And we did it safely. And I was pretty bullish on the silver bullet for events just being do them outdoors.
Mm.
We just
Mhm.
started to do all our retreats outdoors. And so we did them sooner than a lot of my peers. And I felt responsible with that because I was like, we're outside. We're good. We're
Yeah.
not. Um, and uh, that also took us deeper. So
Mm.
we were able to maintain community virtually going through something together, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Which I think is a part of it too. Like, well, are people vulnerable? Are they like sharing what their needs are? Are they getting help? Are we going through things together? Because if the answer is yes,
Mm-hmm.
then we're building community.
Mm.
If it's virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe that when we want to reach new depths in our community or a new standard in our community,
Mm.
um, or we want to open up to a new level of possibility for what our community can be, that needs to happen in person.
Mm.
So new standards or levels of depth in a community or in a culture,
Mm.
that's created in person.
Mm.
But then we can maintain it virtually. We can maintain it virtually.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's like rising up, having that new benchmark, and then yeah, maintaining online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. There are other ways that we could look at community but I think about real community in real life, right? Not
Yeah.
just, like that's gonna last.
Yeah.
That's true relationships that it requires this look at community at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's value in online communities and programs, but if we're building like a community in real life, then we got to be in life together at some point.
Mm-hmm. And how do you define the difference between a group and a community? So group, bunch of people, community, there's team energy.
Yeah. I think the like a group is it's a bunch of people that are have
Mm.
share an interest in something. I
Mm-hmm.
think at like most conferences, there
Mm-hmm.
isn't a community, and even large companies, there's not often a community. There can be, right? But it's like, oh, there's this mutual shared interest,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think community is where we become committed to something
Mm-hmm.
together, right? Committed. So whether it's that shared purpose or standards or values, right? There's a coherence that gets created
Mm-hmm.
from that shared commitment of some sort. And honestly, it's like the difference between a group and a community by if there's a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is there a vibe or not? Is there a vibe to it? Can you feel it? Is
Mm-hmm.
there, or is it just a bunch of people gathering who have the same interest?
Mm-hmm. Let's take a slight left turn, but it's totally connected,
Go left.
which is you are also a DJ and DJ events and
Mm.
uh, are really good at it because I've experienced it as well. So you got the tunes on lock. And so do you visualize or, community in a certain way or feel it in a certain way to music in any way?
Yeah. So I love talking about this topic because, anybody who's watching, I think, is starting to get a sense of my passion for in-person community.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, at least for the communities I lead, I want music and art to be a part of it. Uh,
Mm.
and uh, I could go pretty deep on this, could get pretty philosophical.
Let's go wherever you want
All
to.
right, okay, fine,
Yeah,
let's
go
go there.
ahead.
So it's politics is downstream from culture.
Okay.
And when civilization or a country like loses its culture or stops creating
Mm-hmm.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
starts to like die, starts to lose its influence, right? Its structures start to not be held together, right, in different ways. So this could be a company, it could be a community that's a learning community, it could be a country, right?
Would you say like losing its identity?
Yeah, because that is always expressed through art in some way, right? And that could be music, but that art could also just be expression. It could
Mm-hmm.
be the art of, of people like not keeping the energy in, but getting it out in some way, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what creation and art really is like, all right, rather than be stuck in this, let me make something, even if it's just the movement of my body. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so art is always at the center of culture.
Mm.
And structures or politics or policy, all of that, or even just like company policy or company initiatives are always going to be influenced by what the culture is.
Mm.
So again, I'm going kind of deep here on this, but I think it's something people uh, just may not know or have been taught or seen before, but well, we all have seen it too. We've seen the places in the communities where um, there was a strong culture and there was art in some way, right? There was expression in that. So it's almost like an ingredient, like a nutrient for.
Mm. So then when you approach creating community, fostering community, do you look at, okay, what's the culture? What's the, vibe? What's the energy? And then like what art feels like a natural extension to foster that throughout?
Yeah. So I believe that that's a valuable way to look at things. It's like, well, what's the message? What are we trying to do here? What's the energy that we want to be experiencing or, containing within this community,
Mm-hmm.
spreading from this community in some way? And yeah, is there art that resonates with that? Uh,
Mm.
but it's also uh, just it's kind of like you make the meaning of art, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like through the eye of the beholder. So, you know, I remember like feeling this actually pretty powerfully in my Tony Robbins year,
Okay.
right? Going through some really transformational experiences, learning a lot in that community,
Mm-hmm.
and then associating that with certain songs, right? That Tony would play
Really.
every time, right? So the artist may have had a different meaning, right? There's like the Hadaway song, right? Like, life
Totally.
will never be the same.
Exactly what I was thinking of.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But every time I hear that song, I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
step up, right? So it's
Yeah.
like the art, the music holds the association and the meaning,
Mm-hmm.
which in a community comes from like the work, the growth, the learning that we're doing. So we make meaning of the art. It's
Mm.
kind of the anchor for that.
Mm. Mm. Hmm. And do you have some examples of some art that you've used or seen in community?
Totally. So yeah, I mean, it's I think the best example that I've been a part of is during the pandemic. I um, had this unique journey of creating a community in San Francisco of people that danced together during
Mm.
the
Mm-hmm.
and without getting too much into the backstory, although you know what, it's pretty fucking interesting. I'll share it anyways.
Right, let's go.
So we left San Francisco. I have two daughters, 4.5, 6.5.
Okay.
Love them. Love my family. They're balls of light and joy. And when the pandemic began, we decided to go to the Midwest because our parents both had cabins there, right? My parents and Cassie's parents were like, great, like, well, let's get out of this fear bubble. And we didn't know what was going on, and we didn't want to make any rash judgments ourselves about like what we believed was happening or what was appropriate. But
Mm-hmm.
we know that we wanted our daughters to be able to like play outside and not have to deal with all of the, you know, the drama of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm so grateful that we made that decision because it was pretty normal for them. They just got more mom and dad. They loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in the Midwest, and we were at my parents' cabin, which is in Michigan. Uh, if you know Michigan, it's like right here, like
Okay, nice.
Montague, Whitehall is the town,
Mm.
which is 15 minutes away from where Electric Forest happens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Festival, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which was my first one when I was 18.
Mm.
First year it happened, we had friends who worked at the ranch there and were like, there's a new concert happening in the country here. Y'all want to come?
Yeah.
Um, so that was a pretty cool experience to have as an 18-year-old checking that
Okay.
out. And so we're in the pandemic, and there's no music festivals happening in 2020, right? Everybody's at home.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I see this Facebook post from the ranch that hosts Electric Forest, and they go, we're having a Sherwood Forest Appreciation Weekend. We're going to have music and DJs. And this is like April of 2020, right? So, like,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm like,
Early.
what? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah.
Like, what are we all doing? I haven't seen anything like this anywhere. And I reach out, and, what was going on is like, that's their biggest source of revenue. The ranch is like renting it out for Electric Forest. And some of the people who operate it were like, well, let's see if we can still make some money off this thing. People love
Yeah.
this. And I call them, I go, do you know what you're doing? And they said, yeah, we know what we're doing. And I was like, oh, great. Do you have a production team? Do you guys have equipment? And they were like, actually, we don't know what we're doing. Well, I know what I'm doing, and I have a lot of friends with equipment and gear. Do you want us to throw this thing for you? Because I
Mm.
was just inspired by finding a way to get people together.
Mm.
And didn't need anything from it, right? Like they made a lot of money. We didn't make anything. We just were happy to have something to do, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
and and we ended up hosting in June a 1,500 person gathering
Mm.
that it was a socially distanced Electric Forest. Wasn't like on that scale, but
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful experience. People were respectful and safe, and everyone was just so grateful that we like did this, that we like made it happen, that we took the risk,
Mm.
and that we held it with integrity. Um, and it really opened me up to a lot of possibilities mid-pandemic. So I go back to San Francisco after this.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my friends are like, "Yeah, we're not getting together with people yet." And I'm like, "Not even outside?" And was trying to like find a reason to get everybody to come together.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, basically San Francisco has this interesting geography where there's these pockets like in the hills or like little beaches that you can hike down to.
Mm-hmm.
Bay Area speak would be some cutty ass spots, some cutty beaches, right? You got to hike down to.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how about we just bring some speakers down, make a fire, and like listen to some music together outside?
Mm.
And it's like, yes, if we wear masks and there's no social media about this and we don't post anything,
Mm-hmm.
cool, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we called ourselves the Renegade Masquerade.
I remember seeing that actually now. That's triggering my memory. Yeah. I think maybe it was a what do you call it, like a short or something, or a little like reel or something. Yeah.
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 So, first one was like 40 people. Everyone's hiking the equipment down to this beach, like 600 feet elevation change. And when we get down there, it's this magical little pocket, this little beach, no residences around it. It's just, you can see the Pacific Ocean go for miles.
Hmm.
And we had a great night. And at the end, everybody's like, so we're doing this again next Friday, right? After a week prior being like, no, we can't do that unless we wear masks. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then everybody brought a friend. And now there were like 100 people at the next one.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that to keep doing this and doing it right, we had to put a container around it. And
Mm-hmm.
by container, it's like, what are our agreements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are the values here?
Right.
For us, it was leave it better than you find it,
Mm-hmm.
which means leave people better than you find them too. Anything is possible. In the middle of the pandemic, let's all create magical experiences and show ourselves anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Safety through consent and moderation, right? So just really promoting that and creating safety in the container.
Mm-hmm.
And those were the biggest ones. And so we created this culture where we were like, all right, if you're in the community, you're going to come to these events, you're going to get the opportunity to dance mid-pandemic, you got to honor these.
Mm-hmm.
So it ended up creating something way more than just a beach party. And yes, I think for all of us, house music is something that will always be associated with that, right? So because that's what we played. That's the music that we were gathering around. And then some of our favorite DJs that we looked up to were like Justin Martin, who I think is one of the best house music DJs. I remember him tapping me on the shoulder and being like, "Hey, can I play music right now?" And I'm like, "Holy shit, that's Justin fucking Martin, and he's here at our beach party asking to play."
Of course
And
you can play.
yes, yeah. Uh, um, and uh, so the values for us became associated with that. I'll always have a place in my heart for house music, even more so because of that experience.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that's the story that kind of answers. But to get a little more practical in this question of where does art bring community together,
Mm-hmm.
uh, as I've led community longer,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely started, like our professional leadership development communities, which is different. That's different than a beach party,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but definitely inserting more opportunities for dance and, bringing in the opportunities at the end of a day of learning for let's go on an adventure. I've actually done some of those beach parties just for our leadership development community when they
Mm-hmm.
come out. Because that then becomes something that all of our learning is anchored by, is that shared experience of art in some way.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, I love the example because it just brings it to life. Um, and when it comes to agreements, that's what I heard is, values and agreements, values and agreements. Yeah, how do you approach that with, say, a new community or an existing community? Do you have like, your list of
Yeah.
agreements that you pull out that are usually good, or do you customize them for each one? How does that work?
Yeah. I mean, I think whatever the agreements, like I can give a couple that I think are important, but overall, what's most important is just whatever the agreements are agreements.
Mm-hmm.
That's honored in some way, right? There's accountability, like we address it, and it's held by the people who are leading.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think that's the most important one, right? Is that they're held by the people that are leading.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, um, you know, I think the easiest way to come up with those is just to ask everybody, like, hey, what do we want? Like, do we want this to be loose? Do we want this to be tight? Do we want to have to show up on time? Are we cool if people show up halfway through the call? Like,
Mm-hmm.
just asking the group, right? Because now we're not, as community leaders, needing to kind of like be the one who's has to get vulnerable, holding people accountable to that shit. It's like now it's like, well, this is what you said you wanted, and it's my job to lead this community and to,
Right.
it's just easier. It's more relational.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and
yeah,
everybody is bought in because they have a piece of, forming it together. Yeah.
there's nothing lost in translation then. Like, what does this mean? And like, what is it exactly? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I would imagine, do you have them written out, wherever that community place is so that it's clear, or is it more of a verbal thing?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think once they're clear in a
Yeah.
community, then it's good to make them visible, right? So everybody is reminded of them. Because we're all in different communities, different spaces with different standards, and sometimes we forget. Uh,
Right.
yeah.
Right. Okay. And are there any, problems that come up with, having a bunch of people, a bunch of personalities, different things going on in people's lives? How do you approach, I would say maybe, yeah, just problem solutions, mediating, managing?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and um, there's the way to like tackle that on the surface. It's like, what do we do when like people have tension with each other, or when a challenge arises, or someone's going through something, um, and I think it's like, well, what are our values,
Mm,
right? If one of our values is leaving people better than we found them, and somebody needs help, then let's leave them better than we found them.
hmm.
And sometimes that means challenging the fuck out of them too, right? With love, because we want to leave them better. We're not trying to like have them leave with their tail between their legs in this moment,
Right.
right?
Right.
Is really being clear on the essence of that. Uh, and um, I also think that the level underneath that is to think as a leader about what the environment is that will bring the best out of people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, you know, when people are leading teams, they're often measured for their results.
Mm,
The results are a product of how people show up. Results are a product of how engaged someone is. Results are a reflection of how resourceful an individual is or a team is in wanting to find the answers and learn together,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's all a product of the culture, like the environment that we're creating. Is it bringing out the best? Is it bringing out a version of our team, right, where they're going to create results? The same thing with community, where if you're leading a mastermind, it's like, well, what are the results that we're promising? And then there's like, yes, what do we need to teach them? Like, what do they need to learn?
Mm,
But there's also what's the environment they need
right.
be the version of themselves that can do the learning, all right, or that can integrate the learning, or that can go be inspired and motivated and have the energy to go create the results,
Mm,
right? So I think that's important if you want to be known for a community leader that creates lots of results.
mm-hmm.
It's being really intentional about the environment, and is that going to, influence people in your community to become the versions of themselves that would create those results?
Mm, mm-hmm. And since we're on the topic of results, do you have any mm, nuances or thoughts on um, the balance? So, in say like a community focused on coaching or results in some way, any
Sure.
thoughts on curriculum or environment, like you said, where on one extreme, let's just imagine to paint the picture, one extreme is like every single step is laid out and it's like you follow the process and just it's that way or no way. And then on the other side of the extreme, there's here's a little sprinkle of stuff, here's the bubble, flow throughout it however you want. It's totally up to you. Uh, do you get a sense of kind of like what's your preference when designing that environment or that training curriculum for maximum results?
Yeah. So I think it depends on uh, what, like how far along the people are that you
Mhm.
are teaching in that community,
Yeah.
right? So if you are leading a community for people that have already run lots of events,
Hmm.
and you're wanting to help them make their events more profitable, right? Well, then in a community like that, you still want to have those structures and those process for profit because maybe they need that education. Maybe they haven't valued that in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But also you can be a little bit more take what you need from this because
Mm-hmm.
you're already experienced and you've all already done this successfully at some level. So you're going to know what's most valuable for you.
Mm-hmm.
However, if somebody's never run an event before, then they're going to need a lot of process.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, yeah, but even then, I wouldn't recommend that somebody runs an event just because they want to when they learn the process. I think the first step is always, all right, go to events and value the processes that exist, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
like um, go experience mastery or at least further down the path than you, right? People who've done that. At least for me personally, and the sorts of people that tend to be drawn to the things that I do, I
Mm-hmm.
think that the learning style is very much supported by seeing it first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like let's not just learn the process on the worksheet and have it described on Zoom. Like let's see it in practice. Let's see it demonstrated and held well. I think that's where then it's easier for us to run our first event well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I totally agree too, because I feel like we can spend hours, months, years learning in theory, and just going out there, seeing it done live is way more valuable than that and happens in an instant.
Yep. And I think also, especially because this is mostly people leading masterminds here, right? It's like there's uh yeah, let me put it this way. I had some of the greatest growth in leading masterminds or communities
Mm-hmm.
throwing just simple beach parties.
Mm.
Like there was no stakes, except for maybe getting arrested, right? But but like there were no, I wasn't relying on it to like, support my family or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I was able to just kind of have fun practicing community building.
Mm.
And I learned so much without like the pressure of needing to get a result from it in some way. And
Mm.
so, for those who are like, if you are starting out, or if you're just starting to hate what you do, maybe, right?
Mm.
Then I think when we learn, we like what we do, right?
Mm.
When we're
Progress.
progress, right? Then we like what we do.
Mm.
So just bring a group of friends together for a potluck, a hike or breath work in your living room, whatever it is,
Yeah.
without without any stakes. And just try to like do a few things in a simple gathering really well,
Mm.
right? Before leading your first 3-day event, where you've got to nail, the way people are brought in and like making sure they get connected to what they need to on day one, so that on day two, they're like ready to like, trust enough to say yes to your offer. And like, there's a lot of things you got to learn there. So let's break that down. Let's just be in the practice of creating live experience. And those can be simple. Um, so much is learned through that.
Mm. Absolutely. Yeah, I love those manageable step by step. It's like a crescendo. It's building upon itself. And speaking of experiences and experiencing things and learning live in action, you lead a leadership retreat every year called Camp Abundant.
Hmm.
And I'd love to hear more about this because the way I see it is that this is the culmination of your over a decade plus in community building. And then, boom, you're demonstrating your philosophies. People are able to experience live. There's so much just unconscious absorbing, I feel like, happens, seeing it done and facilitated. And yes, there's music. Of course, there's music there. So, yeah, I'd love to hear more on this because you do it every June annually. And yeah, I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. I mean, For me, this starts with actually what got me into kind of coaching, leading transformation, helping other leaders in the first place. You know,
Mm.
there was experience I had of like, oh, I know some things. I've had some valuable experiences of leadership that my friends haven't. I have an opportunity to help them, right? Start a
Mm.
business that way. And also there was a vision. It wasn't just an opportunity, right?
Mm.
And the vision was actually at my last Tony Robbins event that I went to. And, completed that year, which is a huge deal for me, to be able to pay that bill all the way through, at 2024, that was a big deal.
Mm.
And the last event I was at, I had this big question of like, all right, so there's a lot of different possible visions that have kind of come through this year. But ultimately my vision this year was just like do the program, right? Like complete it, be committed, knowing that like so much good is going to come for me in my life from there.
Mm.
So at the last event, Date with Destiny, there's, okay, well, what is my vision actually now that I'm going to start moving towards that's integrating everything that I've learned as a leader the last 8 years or 7 years. And um, there was this one like breath work / visualization that Tony was leading, where I kind of like went on my own little side quest
Nice.
into visualization. And the most impactful part of that for me was like the first scene of the visualization,
Mm.
which was of a personal development music festival, right? It was just like two things that I loved and two things that were meaningful to me. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten the fuel of inspiration on a dance floor.
Mm.
Someone who's just got the set, got the vibe in the mix,
Yeah.
exactly how my heart wants it, right? To like bring, that nourishment to me and, staying committed to a vision. So I've had that many times. I've always loved that, right? And that's different than like, playing a few songs at an event, right? Like break music, right? Like you're,
Fake music, yes.
yeah, which is also great. But like, no, being in the mix with someone who's a legend, right? Is like, I
Yeah.
don't know, something it brings out of you that's different.
Mm.
And I've gotten so much from the personal development, the leadership development, the different training events, learning communities I've been a part of. Like, I love those two things. So for whatever reason, that was just the moment that I was like, well, take two things you love and make a vision with them,
Yeah.
And it was a really powerful vision for me to experience.
Mm.
And but I also had no idea where to start, right? So I mean, I would say that that's been a guiding vision for me for the last
And
10 years.
since, yeah, 24, 25, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Um, so it's been a vision that's really guided a lot of my learning and the things that I've built. And oops. So yeah, Camp Abundant is really um, it's that vision, right? And
Mm.
it is a leadership retreat,
Mhm.
and we do it in the redwoods, deep in the redwoods, on some land that has been used for over 1,000 years for peace gatherings for native tribes. Why? Well, because why not? Why not? Like, if the option is to do an event in the redwoods, right? Like these hundreds of year old trees around us, um, that's been like hosting gatherings for a long, long time. Yeah, let's do it there. Let's do it there. And
Mm.
and I think in nature, uh, we often can have more trustable learning experiences.
Mm.
Sometimes like in
Trustable.
mhm, yeah, for
Okay.
ourselves. Like it's real, right? It's not
Mhm.
just like the room we're in,
Mm.
right? It's so I've just seen that people have the most powerful transformations when they're in nature.
Mm.
It's not that I don't ever do events inside, but
Mhm.
for Keep Abundant, we're going to be outdoors, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and also, this place happens to have awesome accommodations and host like Google and YouTube retreats, and
Oh,
the
well.
bathrooms are meticulous, right? So it's not like people are camping; they're comfortable too. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and But that's kind of the first place is like just the container of the space. Um, and it is ultimately a journey where, yeah, there's a lot of like learning from experts on many different topics, different ways to market and create content and build community and how to lead and develop others effectively, how to sell, how to also hearing from elders, right? There's a woman, Grandma Shirley, who'll be there, who has sundanced 75 times. If you don't know what that is, just look it up. And she's a Cherokee elder, right? So it's like some wisdom with the business. Like, yeah, all these things to learn, but that's on top of our own leadership journey, meaning everybody is really working on themselves first, right? And having that opportunity to connect in nature in a way where they're disconnected from the outside world, disconnected from technology, and they can just be invited to really slow down and connect with their purpose.
Mm.
Like why are you here? And I think we should all ask that question right now because the world's changing fast and anything is possible today. So let's
Yeah.
be fucking wise then about the possibilities that we choose to hold, right? So I think that that's so critical for us collectively, but also just individually. And then from there, it's like, okay, great. Like, what do I need to work on or let go of in myself so that I can be more in alignment with that purpose? And so that depth of journey
Mm.
is the core of the experience. And then let's all learn from each other on top of that. And
Yeah.
then let's have fun at night and let's dance to amazing musicians. There's certain things I can't share publicly, but we can give the information of how to check it out to your community. We could do that at the end. But what we say at Camp Abundant is that the more safety we create
Mm.
in our community, the deeper we can go.
Mm.
And the deeper we go, right, the more honest, the more vulnerable, the more just real it's safe to be with where we're at and like what we love or what we hate, to just be able to work that out, right? We all kind of need that hygiene,
Mm.
those that. So this more safety we create, the deeper we can go. And
Mm.
then the more we're going to actually grow, not just the illusion of it, right?
Mm.
Not just being convinced of it. But
Mm.
no, it's from our depths that true growth happens. And that's what we celebrate on the dance floor. That's what we say at Camp Abundant. And that's what creates the vibe. Safety allows for depth, which allows for real growth. And then we just celebrate that shit. And that's
Right.
the vibe, right? That's what we bring to the dance floor. Um, and I've seen that, like, yeah. We also say, uh, if you really grew, we're going to see it on the dance floor. And I
Mm.
found that to be true. It's like the way people open up and over the course of of 5 days with that, and just get more comfortable in their own skin, their own body, while also learning the tools that they're going to need to go achieve whatever they want out in the world. Yeah, I'm really passionate about it. It's a lot of fun, and it is a culmination, right? It is uh, for me, it's my art, right? It's the expression of um, what I'm continually learning and want to keep learning around and bringing that together.
Mm.
So, and bringing a community of community leaders together, because, I started with this, but I believe the world needs that right now. The world needs people that are taking a stand for community,
Mm.
are creating it, or inviting others into it, because that cures isolation, which is the biggest problem.
Totally. Cures isolation and I believe puts the power back with the people rather than
Power
the
to the people.
institutions. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. I mean, tell me more about that. What do you see there?
But yeah, I mean, if we're all isolated, then these conglomerate complexes that are just moving and dictating our lives, which is the opposite of the original founding of this nation, 1776, like the power goes back into what it was back then, which was circle of allies come together with a shared mission, vision, purpose, having a
Yeah,
trust with each
true.
other
Yeah.
to be real.
Yeah. I guess when you put it that way, it started with a community, right? Right.
Did. Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Mm. Awesome. So that is campabundant.com. Applications are open right
Yeah,
now.
there is a password, right?
Okay.
And that's just because we're being particular about which communities are able to see it, because we just really want to have a standard of um, embodiment and
Mhm.
people being community leaders. So
Mm.
that password is uh, abundancia, abundant with IA at the end. It's the
Mhm. Fantastic. So campabundant.com, the password abundancia.
abundantia.
Abundantia. Yep. And in June,
That word is the Greek goddess of
okay.
abundance. Just so
Okay.
it's like, what the hell are you talking about? But no, that's the
Yeah.
password. That's what that is.
Fantastic. So every June annually, Camp Abundant, and 5 days in the Redwoods, um, leadership retreat. So now what I'd like to do is do a summary. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
And as I share this summary, these notes I have, um, invite you to share a closing thought or closing thought, insight of some type, whatever resonates with you. So I have a little time to marinate while I share the summary here, and we'll bring it home for today. So yeah, really taking, hearing about your experience with leadership that started in the beginning in Chicago, with the train, and
Started with the brain. There we go.
started with the train and helping people from your experience. So you going first, leading from experience, helping people take action outside of their comfort zone, for a beneficial purpose. And I think that probably is what separates maybe a leader from a bully. Bullies like probably push people outside of their comfort zone in a way it's not good. Leader push pull outside of their comfort zone for a good purpose.
Mm.
And yeah, really hearing about how your journey through the sales teams as help build that experience, and then also the difference between a performer and a leader,
Yeah.
different skill stack, and going through Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership Program at 24 and the 120K investment for there, and really seeing the example of community come together. And uh, I have this quote. I don't know if you said indirectly, but it just came to mind as you were sharing: is community equals committed to something together.
Mm.
Community equals committed to something together, and how you approach it of what's the culture first, and then what's the art and the expression that expands from that, and is linked. So it fosters this shared feeling, shared vibe, and how the values and the agreements are central to it. And agreements are honored and held by the people who are leading, and writing them out is key. And also asking the group, what are agreements? What do we want to have for ourselves? And and really that is part of the secret to the problem crisis management solution is, okay, what are our values here? What are our agreements that we all agree to? And you shared some examples of like leave people better than when we found them. And what is this environment for people to succeed? And you can share too, like how when it's creating results with a mastermind community and program, the difference between, say, new people, probably more process based, experienced
Yeah.
people, it's there for them if they need it, but it's probably really like the nuances maybe of seeing it in action. And the last thing, bring it home, is really what I heard from you saying about Camp Abundant, this culmination of your calling and your calling is the safety. I'd say, the trust, the safety slash trust, then it creates the depth, which then creates the real growth. And then, hey, that's a beautiful thing. So let's celebrate that. And so all of that wrapping up with our journey today of community leadership. Uh,
Mm.
what would you like to leave us with today?
Yeah. So thank you for the synthesis there. And what comes up for me is that um, being a leader of community takes a lot of courage.
Mm,
You gotta put yourself out there, and you also gotta, just like anything, you have to be bad at things first. before you're good at them. And it can really fucking hurt, right? To be bad, like the early stages of leading community and like getting people leaving, not wanting to come back, like the rejection of that. Like it brings up like all your stuff,
Mm.
personally, right? And so I just want to commend the courage of community leaders out there. It can be lonely because everyone relies on you and wants, something from you often. And it is you get held to the highest standard
Mm.
of anyone in the community. And that can be lonely to be up there, right? Being held to a higher standard than anybody else by yourself. And so just letting you know, if you are a community leader, that you're not alone because there's other community leaders out there.
Mm.
And but also I get it. And I commend taking that on. I commend
Mm.
taking and I do believe it's a wise thing to do because the world needs it, but also I think it's a skill that can only be learned through experience, really. And
Mm.
so it's not something that people can um, take from you. It's not it's not an asset that someone else can like create an AI bot for, right?
Mm.
So there's it's really wise and smart to become someone who's really passionate about mastering building community
Mm.
and mastering creating powerful live experience because I think that's a huge differentiator in the future. It already is. It already is. And so just hold the vision, hold the vision of yourself being someone that is a leader of community. And, what we think and talk about most is what we become. It's what we become. Um, and the only way to learn is to get experience. So, I mean, I think the final thing is uh, I kind of took for granted, even in this interview, like just the importance of the reps that I was able to get,
Mm.
right? Of like leading a sales training for 3 days,
Mhm.
uh, a couple hundred times. And like the little moments that used to really confront me
Mm.
now are like no big deal,
Mm.
right? The first time someone complains, or the first time someone gives some opposition to what you've just taught or said,
Mhm.
right? And I remember at first it was like, all right, well, we're gonna get into an argument and I'm gonna fucking win. I'm this thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then but now it's like I know in those moments that hey, there's something really valuable to
Mm.
get curious about in their experience, something that I wasn't aware of,
Mm.
right? Or it's a type of person that I didn't know how to reach in some way.
Mhm.
And also I know that like oftentimes what's not it's not like when someone gives feedback or has a different view that we need to necessarily do anything different
Mm.
or have a different perspective. Like often we just need to let them speak it,
Mm.
get it out, right?
Mm.
And then like it loses its hold. But like when we fight it or have resistance to it, or like not right now, or like those or the arguing even,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
Which like, oh, I have to be right. I'm the leader. I can't, let people see someone else challenge me. But you got to go through those moments to realize, like, oh no, like actually, I just have to listen here,
Mm.
and then we're good. We can move on, right? But those are the sorts of things that you gotta feel it in your body, right? You gotta like be confronted and then get through your own uncomfortableness to
Mhm.
see fruits of that, right? So, and that's just one little detail. That's one moment that every community leader experiences, but there's so many that you kind of just have to get experience with. So go lead some community. Go like, just get some people over for dinner tonight.
Mm. Boom. Deep wisdom there. Deep, deep wisdom, I feel. And I smile because I resonate with everything you shared. And what a powerful, great ending here. So, this has been Community Leadership with Ben Schemper, founder of Camp Abundant.
Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks for having me.